Good afternoon, family. Thanks for checking out today's video. If you're new here, my name is Jonathan, and I created this channel as a way to record my progress as I work towards my goal of losing 300 pounds in 3 years. If you do enjoy the video, make sure that you get subscribed to the channel. Also, click on the bell icon so you'll get alerted when I go live. Also, if you get a chance, click the thumbs up as well. Let YouTube know that you like the video. Um, if you'd like to participate in on the discussion, you can join me on my live streams, which I usually do weekly. I'm sorry, which I do most weekdays, or outside of my live streams. You can consider joining the Discord server that we created. There is a link for that down in the description below. Also, if you're interested in getting some ideas of the meals that we enjoy, we created a Pinterest board that has a lot of our family's favorite whole food plant-based meals. Today is day 538 of my 3-year challenge to lose 300 pounds. I'm getting really close to that halfway mark. I've used a combination of extended water fasting and a whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free diet to lose over 200 pounds. I'm doing great so far. I've been enjoying my diet and I've been enjoying this whole process thoroughly. And I'm looking forward to the next 18 months. If anybody has any non-scale victories they'd like to share, I'd love to hear your non-scale victories. Just like to hear how you're doing on your diets. If you're getting ready to start your diet, what are you doing to get going? If you've fallen off track, what are you doing to get back on track? Um, what's keeping you from getting started? And once you get started, what are some of the steps you are going to take to make staying on your diet easier than the alternative? Let's switch over. I hope everybody had a great evening last night. We had a good evening getting everything ready for the weekend and just kind of hanging out as a family and doing some last minute shopping and lots of random things, I suppose, last night. Um, but for dinner, we had one of our regular meals, which was our chickpea tikka masala. I did not take a photo of it, but it is one of our standard meals. Carrie's checking in saying, hey, Carrie, I hope you're doing great today at home with the kids. A little bit longer day with the kids. They had an early out, so I'm sure she is just having a ton of fun. Um, so yeah, dinner was pretty simple last night. Had the chickpea tikka masala. I did end up having 2 bowls of it. I was on the fence about whether or not to have more than 1 bowl, and I decided, what the heck, why not? Also, Carrie has been experimenting, or not experimenting at this point, but she has been making sourdough bread, and she had just baked a loaf of that when I got home. So I did have a slice of sourdough bread last night. And then just kind of our regular our mandarin oranges. I did have a handful of cashews, tried to limit it a little bit. Carrie says, yeah, she's getting ready for the final prep for our son's survival camp this weekend. And then we can't have one kid staying out or staying over somewhere without everybody else wanting to do sleepovers as well. So we're getting ready to get rid of the kids for or half the kids, I guess, for a night. Um, so yeah, I had the cashews, cherry juice, kind of the regular stuff. Got on the scale today. It's not moving the way I want it to move. Stupid scale. But it's a process, and I know that it's going to take time. I really would like to see a huge loss this upcoming week, and then the following week getting to my halfway point. I'd like to be as close to under 300 or under 300 by the time I get to 40 is the goal. So I am going to have to be a little bit diligent about what I'm eating or how I'm eating this weekend if I want that to happen. The weekends generally turn into a bit of a buffet at home for me, or uh, smorgasbord, whichever one of those is the better word. But just me going to town on whatever food I can get my hands on. I do have a lot of work that I will probably end up putting in some hours this weekend for my job, which will kind of help me avoid um, the temptation of eating and then also help me get my work stuff done that I need to be getting done. Let's see. Breakfast this morning. I did not have much for breakfast. I just had a few small oranges, and then a glass of cherry juice, and that's all I've had to eat today. I'm probably going to stick to this one meal a day kind of setup that I have going on now until my birthday. Try to lose as much weight as possible without totally killing myself or going into a fasted state for the next 10 days or 13 days, just under 2 weeks till I need to until my 40th birthday. So it's coming up and it's going to come up very quickly. Uh Other stuff that I have going on, um like I said, I've been busy with work, so I was doing a lot of that stuff today. The only other thing I was really going to talk about was just how um with diet, sometimes the path less traveled is the right path. And it's tough because we rely so much on the experience of others and kind of how things went for them to determine what we want to do or how we are going to proceed. And I was kind of relating this to I years ago used to do a lot of ATV riding and four wheeling around the area that I live, and I've been all over the United States doing different kind of trips on my four wheeler. And one of the things that you run into is that when you are driving down a path, you may come up to a hill or you may come to a section where you have multiple options for which way that you want to go. And many times those options look different, based on they look based on the difficulty of the route or based off of how many times people have gone down that path. And so you may be presented with three paths. One of the paths looks like it's been very well used, that's the path everybody's using. And then there's two other paths. One of them might be a little bit more less used than the main path, might look a little more difficult. There's maybe a tighter turn or there's a tighter space that you have to go between a couple trees. And then there's a third path that doesn't appear to be used very much at all. And when you drive up to that area on your ATV, you're presented with these three choices, and that's when you have to decide which path you want to take to go up the hill, because you don't want to be coming backwards down the hill. And so you want to make the right choice right away. So the safest option would be to go with the path that it looks like everybody's been going on. And that is generally what most people are choosing. That's why it is the path that is the most worn in. And when you do that route, you you go down that path and you have that experience. You may get to the top of the hill, um, and you didn't have any hiccups, you didn't run into any issues, and you made it to the top of the hill. Whereas if you take the least ridden path, you have that fear or that danger of not making it up that path or something going wrong. But if you do take that more difficult path and you get to the top, you somewhat have, depending on what you are looking for an experience, if you're looking for an experience that is exhilarating and is adrenaline fueled, then taking the less traveled path is going to give you that adrenaline and give you that fuel than taking the more used path. But what I guess this relates to with diets is that when we are faced with our diet, there's a lot of different paths that we can choose to go down with our diet. You can decide to eat a keto diet or join Weight Watchers or try to um, eat, I don't know if I think I said keto, but paleo or calories in, calories out, or go to a doctor and have phentermine or have a surgery done. And these are paths that many people have chosen to take. And the biggest thing is that the reason why there's so many people that we see that have taken these paths is because they are the easiest path. They're the path that people are choosing to take because it appears to be the easiest path to the destination that they're trying to get to. But when we really look at it, what are what's the success rate on that path that is really worn in? And when we really get looking at it with diet, is the success rate isn't that high, because a lot of these people that we are using for these examples, or these people that are telling us to do these diets, aren't succeeding on the diet themselves. Or if the path that was the easiest to take was the most successful one, everybody around us would be healthy and would be thin because we would have all taken that path. If Weight Watchers was the correct path, then everybody would take that path and we'd all be thin, but that's not the result. There's a lot of people taking that path, but then halfway up the hill, you didn't realize it at the bottom of the hill, but there's a big tree in the way. And so most of the reason why that path is so well worn in is because people went halfway up the hill and they turned around and they had to come back down that same path. So it may look like it's the easiest or it's the best path when you start, but it doesn't hold up, because by the time you get to the top of that hill, that easy path becomes very difficult. And when we are comparing that to what people are choosing, that's very common. That there's a lot of people going down the avenue of eating a keto diet or focusing on calories in, calories out, or cutting the carbs and doing the Atkins style diet. There was a lot of people heading down that path, and they did a great job losing weight as they went down that path for the first couple months. But then they ran into a big log, they ran into a tree, they ran into a roadblock that made it so that they had to come back out and come back down that same trail. And then the smart one of those people chose a different path to go up. And that's why these other paths are there. They may not be as well used as the first path, but those paths are there. That's what they use. A lot of us, though, we go down, we run into a roadblock, we come back down the path, and we're faced with the choices again. And we said, you know what? This time I'm going to run down that path and I'm going to make it around that tree. I'm going to make it over that stump or that log. And we head right back down that same path. And we get to that same stump and that same log, and we realize that, oh, wait, this was a huge stump that we were never going to be able to get around. Or, okay, I get around that log. Now there's another one and another one and another one, because nobody else is getting past this point. The trail has disappeared. And so you have to recut that trail, even if you can make it down the path that everybody's taking. And with the whole food plant-based diet, this diet is a path that I did not see anybody taking before I started this. Before I started this challenge, I had heard of a vegan diet, never and I heard of a vegan doing like no oil even, but to do a whole food, plant-based, no salt, oil, sugar free diet, no salt, oil, or sugar in their diet is not a path that I have heard anybody going down. And it's because it's a difficult path. It is hard to eat this way in the society that we live in. And on top of, I guess, on top of the difficulty, and with the analogy I'm using with the ATV club or the ATV riding, is that we are sitting there having to decide what path to go down. And there are companies and there are people holding signs that say, go down this path, don't go down that path. And many of those signs are saying, go keto, go carnivore, eat more meat, eat less carbs. And so all of these signs that are out for which way to go or which path to choose, all those signs are pointing down the path that everybody's going down, because the guy that is making the signs makes money based on the number of people that go down the path that they want them to go down. And with the whole food plant-based diet, there's no money in it. Hey, Anthony's checking in saying, have a happy weekend. Have a happy weekend. I hope you have a great weekend too. I hope everything is going great for you. But so we're choosing this diet path that is extremely challenging. There's no signs on the trail. There's nobody marking the way. But once I got on the path, I realized that it's not any more difficult once I'm on the path than when I got started. And now that I'm on the path, I see that there are hundreds of people that are on this same path that I would not have known were on this path had I not started going down it. I am not the first person to lose weight with a whole food plant-based diet. I'm not the first person to heal their injuries or heal themselves by doing this diet. But if I had just let the guy making the signs tell me what diets worked, I would never know this diet. It took me investigating, looking into this. I mean, there's even the fasting, the path for fasting is more well cut than the path for eating a whole food plant-based diet, because that's my whole goal, was to use fasting. I was going to fast my way to health, and I was going to find out, that was going to be the secret. That was the secret that I figured out, that was that I just needed to fast and then not gain more weight between fasts than I lose during the fast. And there are people selling books out there for that, or there's people trying to push you in that direction, but they're not giving the whole story. They're saying, here's the path of fasting, go this way, but there's no directions once you start down that path. There's nobody guiding you on how to get to a healthy weight if you take just the path of fasting, until I found the True North Clinic and what the Dr. Lisle and Dr. Alan Goldhamer is were saying with the Pleasure Trap book. And it wasn't until I got out of that loop of taking the path that everybody else was traveling and failing that I finally found the right path for me. Harry is saying, it is hard. We are so focused on the food in our society. Yes, it has been extremely tough for us even to separate the food from celebrations. I mean, the birthday, we have birthday pancakes, weddings, graduations, everything. There's a celebration. There's a holiday for anything. Anthony, it's Happy Earth Day. Yes, Happy Earth Day to you today, Anthony. I don't know if people celebrate Earth Day with food, but I'm sure somebody out there is having an Earth Day party and they are using food to celebrate. It is such an ingrained thing in our society, and I think that it's probably stems from years and years of sharing what we had, sharing the food that we had with other people, and that's, why we create these celebrations. Um, and uh, and so it is so tough to quit focusing on the food and it's such a, I suppose, cliche thing, but the food is really just a tool. It's just there for energy. And when you derive your pleasure from your food, then you start to get into a situation where you get to a point where all of your pleasure is derived from food. And that's really where I was before I started this, is that if I was sad, I went and got food. If I was happy, I went and got food. If I was tired, I went and got food. If I was full of energy, I went and got food. Um, Carrie says she's celebrating Earth Day by eating plants today. You're going to eat the earth by that's how you're going to celebrate Earth Day. Um, it's crazy. Like with Earth Day, it's just such a weird, like I have such a different perspective, um, than I did before. And it's funny because with veganism or eating a plant-based diet, there's three main reasons why people eat this way. One of them is for my health, which is why I've chosen to eat this way. The other is for the animals, which is what veganism is to eat this way for the animals. And then there is for the planet. And uh celebrate by eating you. Yes. Um that could get very sideways very quickly. Um the uh But the third reason why people eat a plant-based diet or eliminate animal products from their diet is for environmental reasons. And until I saw movies like Seaspiracy or Cowspiracy, I didn't realize the impact that the animals that we eat were having on the environment. And it's a simple math problem that I don't understand why it's I do understand why it's not brought up, because the meat industry doesn't want you to think about it. But if you eat a cow, you get X number of calories from that cow. Let's say, just making it up, but a cow produces 10,000 calories. This is a low number, I know, but I'm just making up a number. So if I take a cow and I cut it up and it produces 10,000 calories, then that is 10,000 calories that I'm able to feed people. How many calories did it take? How many calories worth of food did it take to make a cow that has 10,000 calories? The cow doesn't create energy. It doesn't create meat without being fed. And so in order to make those 10,000 calories that the cow is comprised of when we butcher it, we have to feed that cow 100,000 calories worth of food. There's like a 9-to-1 ratio of, so I guess it would be 90,000 calories, but we'd have to give him 90,000 calories in order to get 10,000 calories from the cow. And so it's just, and we don't take, if we converted all 10,000 of those calories into energy or protein on our bodies, then maybe you could justify it. But we don't. We take that 10,000 calories and then we eat it. And even if we had a better return on the investment than the cow has, and let's say we get 2,500 calories that we actually retain from that 10,000 calories, then we actually used 90,000 calories worth of crops to give ourselves 2,500 calories worth of energy. And it's a huge waste. And that's what that's just crazy. Anthony says here, yeah, the whole issue with eating animal is suspicious. Yes. And he says, you still eat meat, but you're questioning it still. continue to question it until you don't question it any longer and you choose to eliminate the meat from your diet. I know that it's extremely daunting, and I know you've been working on those things, but um, for me, and I've talked to Carrie about this a lot too. If you're unwilling to get rid of meat from your diet, then I would really, really push you to eliminate salt, oil, and sugar from your diet still and see if you're still enjoying that meat. Because a lot of times we don't have meat without added salt or added sugar, or even cooking it in oil. And so I could understand if somebody were to try to argue that there is a place for meat in your diet. Um, but I would then argue back that you can have that meat in your diet, but get rid of the salt, oil, and sugar and see if you're still enjoying that meat the same way, and see if it's really the meat that you're holding on to or that extra salt that you're holding on to. Um, because that is I honestly, of all of the things that I've taken from everything that I've been doing for the last 18 months, it is my biggest takeaway has got to be how messed up salt is in our diet and the effect that it has on our body, and we don't think about it, but the common uses for salt outside of the body is to preserve meat, or we use it on our roadways to change the temperature that water freezes at, and then it rusts our cars. The stuff that will rust metal, we willingly put into our body and process and don't question at all. And so that is something that I didn't question salt for the longest time. And I think that people's unwillingness to give it up is kind of proof of the addictiveness of the nature of salt has, and the control it has over us in general. So, um, if you were to say you had to keep meat in your diet for whatever reason, I would still really push for eliminating salt, oil, and sugar. Um, Salt is a curious compound, yes. The uh, the other if you're interested in a book, the Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss, he talks a little bit about sodium and salt. And the reason why salt is so prevalent too is because it's so cheap. It's like a dime per pound for them to sell. Like the company that produces salt sells it for a dime per pound. And so for a chef, a pound of salt is a lot of salt, and you can get people to overeat a lot of food. It's the cheapest way for somebody who's preparing food to improve the flavor of that food for most people. There are lots of things in our diet that if they didn't have salt in them, we would not like the taste of it. If your breakfast cereals didn't have some level of sodium in them, you wouldn't eat the breakfast cereals for the most part. So it is something that I would yes, there's there's different grades of salt also, yes. And that is something that they talk about in that book. There are over 40 different types of salt, and depending on what the purpose is, the manufacturer will use a different type of salt. The salt that they use inside of microwave popcorn is different than the salt that they use different than table salt. It's different than the salt that they use inside of a hot pocket. It's chemically designed to stick to the popcorn better than regular salt does. It might be shaped in a different way so that it dissolves faster on your tongue. There are so many different things that we just lump into the word salt category, and we just assume, well, you need salt because it's got electrolytes and plants crave electrolytes. So that's an Idiocracy reference. If anybody's seen the movie Idiocracy, you would know that reference. If you haven't seen the movie Idiocracy, you should find some streaming device where you can watch the movie Idiocracy and watch history unfold in front of your eyes. But yes, I don't know if I really finished the analogy about yes, the high fructose corn syrup is also a sugar. Yeah, and the fructose, glucose, the salt, sugar, fat. Michael Moss, read it. I would really recommend it. We're talking about that a lot here. I didn't realize that fructose, glucose, and sucrose are all different things. Or they're the same, two of them make up the third. I'm not exactly sure, but yes, the manufacturers have manipulated even sugar to a point where they can get us to overindulge based off of what they the combinations that they make. So anyways, the big point today is that sometimes the path less traveled is the path with the most success. Even if the path looks like it's the way to go, even if keto looks like it's the way to go because everybody's doing keto or Atkins or getting surgery, even if it looks like that's the path everybody's taking, what's the success rate? You can see the path, you can see the people going down the path and they're yelling, "Follow me," for the first couple months. But once you start examining it and see, how many people are still doing keto 4 months in, how many people are still doing keto 8 months in, how many people are still doing keto 2 years in, and compare that to people who are eating a plant-based diet. How many people who have started eating a plant-based diet are still eating a plant-based diet 6 months in, 2 years in, 10 years in? I think that the average success rate of a plant-based diet would be much higher than the success rate of a keto diet. But because 90% of the people we see are doing a keto diet, all of the information that we get are people doing that diet. The 10% of the people doing these other diets and the 1% of the people doing a plant-based diet, they don't have the voice. They might have a 90% success rate, but that's still fewer people than even went a day on keto versus, so anyways, don't fall for the idea that these fad diets or these diets that are going to get you light quick are the way to go. I'm going to get out of here though. I'm going to enjoy the weekend. I hope you guys enjoy the weekend. It is very rainy here today. Hopefully that lets up and we start to see some sunlight over the course of the weekend so I can get out and do some yard work, or I can just sit in a building and do my other work all day, which will probably be what ends up happening. But it's tough when it's the choice between work and hanging out with the family. I almost always choose hanging out with the family. So we'll see how this weekend goes. Lots of deadlines next week, lots of things to get done. So I've still been listening to the book, Be Obsessed, Be Average by Grant Cardone. Love the book so far. Really pushing me to get more done or be more deliberate with my time. I think that's a big part of it. So I'm liking that book. I'm going to get out of here, guys. You have a great weekend. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell icon. If you haven't started your diet yet, get started right now. Everybody who succeeds looks back and says, I wish I would have started sooner. Nobody regrets getting started right now. Don't wait for Monday. Start today. Clean out your pantry. Pick up, get a new grocery list going. If you got to go a few days with a little bit less food than you're used to, you can survive it. We are all designed to go a little bit of time without food. So if you have to go with less food, you can handle it until you get an idea or grasp on the diet or what you're going to eat. Don't fall for the two myths of moderation, the myth of moderate change, the idea that you can slowly, progressively work towards eating a healthier diet is a false assumption. So many times you get started, you might cut back here, you might decide to add a salad in or eat healthier for breakfast or start doing your shakes. But a lot of times before you end up doing this full conversion to your new diet, you've already quit, you've already failed, something's got in the way. So don't fall for the myth of moderate change. Also, don't fall for the myth of moderate consumption, the idea that a little bit of something is okay, or as long as I eat in moderation, that I will lose weight. It will work for a short period of time, but in the long run, your body will crave to eat large volumes of food. That's why you got as heavy as you did, is because you were eating a volume of food that was higher in calories than your body could burn. You got to change the density of the food. You got to bring down your calorie density to under 600 calories per pound, because we're volume eaters. We are not calories in, calories out eaters. Nobody has ever eaten 3,000 calories worth of potato chips and said, I've been satisfied for the day. It is not sustainable, or 3,000, whatever, eating 2,500 calories, the number of calories you're supposed to eat. Nobody's eating 2,500 calories worth of candy bars and potato chips and said, man, that satisfies me. I could eat this way my whole life forever. It might work for a day or two, but not for your whole life forever. Thanks for checking out the stream today, Anthony, Carrie, everybody else watching it afterwards. Thank you for all your comments, following along. I appreciate it. You all have a wonderful weekend.